So we saw an example of copying the data using Azure Data Factory. So that was an example I just showed you to make you aware how the Azure Data Factory looks like and how we connect to the source, how we connect to the sink. So we are going to see Azure Data Factory functionalities in detail. So before that, let us understand what is that. So Azure Data Factory is an orchestration service which is able to perform various operations, including extract data, load data, and to somewhat transform the data. So on the right side, if you see Azure Data Factory, which is shown in the cloud, is nothing but it is a service that runs on the internet in the Azure environment. So it is able to copy data, transform data, not fully, but to some extent. It is able to invoke the external functionalities. For example, Azure Logic App, Azure Functions, or any HTTP URL. It has inbuilt auditing and monitoring. It also supports GitHub integration, so our code can be checked in, checked out, and we can keep our code repository. And it also holds the metadata. On the left side in this slide, you see CSV text file, JSON, and other Hadoop files. So these are the formats I have mentioned. Azure Data Factory supports various data formats. Apart from that, it supports various systems as a source as well as a sink. Sink in the sense target. So database, cloud system. These are the two I have mentioned here. There are many. And it also able to transform or load or copy any size of data. Now, the arrows are shown here are bidirectional. So it means it is able to read these file formats. It is able to read data from these source systems. However, it is able to write data in those formats. It is able to write data into those systems. Moving ahead, whatever we do in Azure Data Factory, a code behind code is get created. So where exactly that code gets executed, right? So there is something called integration runtimes. So integration runtime is a set of machines attached to the Azure Data Factory. So whenever we submit a data load job or any orchestration job, the code gets submitted on these machines for execution. There can be some cases where we want to connect our on-premise system to move data between these on-premise to the cloud. Since our on-premise is very restricted and Azure Data Factory runs on the internet, how we can establish the connection, right? So there is a concept called self-hosted integration runtime. So it's kind of software we have to install in our on-premise network where this self-hosted integration runtime is able to connect to the Azure Data Factory. So this self-hosted integration runtime, SHIR, help us to move data between on-premise systems to the Azure Data Factory or the cloud. So please go through the resource section in this session. I have provided links. So please go through that. Those are mostly Microsoft documentation. And why I'm providing those links? Because Microsoft keeps the services, all the Azure services updating. So if even I have missed anything or which is not covered in this course because of the limitation and that functionality or the feature added in the future, you should not miss that. Okay. So in this course, what we are going to cover is first is copy activity. So moving data from one system to the other. Point one is Azure to Azure. You may ask why Azure to Azure. So there are some use cases or the scenarios where we want to copy data from one storage to the other storage, one storage to the other database, something like that. Next one is on-premise files to Azure, on-premise database to Azure. So we are going to create a virtual machine. I'm going to show you And virtual machine can be treated as an on-premise machine. And I'm going to show you how we can connect uh, Azure Data Factory to the on-premise virtual machine. Read data from the zip files from the source. We can also save data in the zip files format on the target. We can copy binary files. We can copy data from the web sources. We are going to see how data we copy from Cosmos DB. So these are the some of the copy activities examples I'm going to take. After that, variable and parameter. What are those? We are going to see, and what are the uses of that. There are transformation activities like lookup, for each, conditional operations, and few more. Like a typical we have in ETL tool. Then I'm going to show you how we can take a backup of code manually. So GitHub integration I'm not going to cover in this session. However, my plan is to add that separate video in the current course in future. Integration runtime, I'm going to show you how to install self-hosted integration runtime and connect to the on-premise machines. There are various kind of schedules we can implement using triggers. Those are called as trigger. So schedule trigger, event-based trigger, and tumbling. So tumbling and schedule are somewhat similar, but there is a difference. I'm going to explain that as well. Reusable datasets. So I explained how Azure Data Factory able to hold the metadata as well. So those are two datasets, and datasets can be reused. So using variables parameters, we can reuse the datasets. So kindly note that some of the examples in this session are not related to project exactly because our scope of project is limited, and I cannot cover all these examples as a part of this project. However, for your learning purpose, I'm covering these examples. Yeah. So let's go ahead and see one by one. We'll start with the copy activity first.